I showed up to my sister's rehearsal dinner, carrying a card with a $7,000 check inside it, wearing heels that were already killing me, and a smile I had practiced in the rearview mirror for 20 minutes. By the time I walked out 45 minutes later, the check was still in my purse, the smile was gone, and something inside me that had been bending for years finally, quietly snapped. Let me back up. My sister was getting married in 36 hours to a man named Derek, who wore boat shoes indoors, and once asked me if event coordination was something I did on the side. She was 23. I was 31. We were 8 years apart in age, and about 800 miles apart in every other way. But I had still spent the last 4 months organizing her rehearsal dinner at La Fontaine, a French-Italian restaurant in the city that had a 6-week wait list and a prix fixe minimum that made my accountant wince. I had negotiated a private room. I had curated the menu. I had arranged the florals, coordinated with the photographer, and pre-ordered 2 bottles of the sparkling rosé that Derek's mother had mentioned she liked at Christmas. And I had done it because my mother asked me to, because my mother always asked me to, and because, for 31 years, I had always said yes. The room was already full when I arrived. My parents were seated at the center table. My mother radiant in a dress I recognized immediately because I had driven her to the boutique to buy it, back when her card declined at the register, and I covered the $340 without mentioning it. My father was laughing loudly at something Derek's father had said, the performative laugh he reserved for people he was trying to impress. My brother was at the bar already, nursing something amber, looking like he had not been home to change since work. And at the seat I had reserved for myself, the one I had specifically put at the end of the table, near the door, so I could slip in and out to manage the evening, sat a woman I did not recognize. She was somewhere in her 40s, with shellacked hair and a loud laugh, deep in conversation with Derek's aunt. I stood in the doorway for a moment, surveying the room. Every chair was occupied. My mother noticed me before I could flag down the venue coordinator. She waved from across the room, not with concern, just the breezy wave of a woman who has already resolved a problem she caused without consulting the person affected. "There you are," she said, when I made it to her side. "You look tired, honey." "I came straight from a client meeting," I said. "Mom, where am I sitting?" She tilted her head as if the question were slightly unreasonable. "Well, Derek's family had a few more people than we expected. His aunt and 2 cousins flew in this morning. We didn't want to make them feel unwelcome. I reserved 12 seats," I said. I counted. I know, she patted my arm. "But you know how it is with family. You're so good at just handling things. I figured you'd be on your feet most of the night anyway, making sure everything runs smoothly. You practically work here." She laughed lightly, like this was a compliment. "Just float for now. There's room near the bar. Maybe something opens up later. Just float." I turned the phrase over in my head while the noise of the room pressed in around me. Just float. At the event I organized, in the restaurant I reserved, at the dinner I was currently paying for. My purse was hanging from my shoulder, and inside it, in a cream envelope with a satin ribbon, was a card containing a check for $7,000. It was my sister's honeymoon fund. She and Derek had wanted to go to the Amalfi Coast. They couldn't afford it. I could, technically, if I cashed out the savings I had been rebuilding since I took out the equipment loan 3 years ago to save my parents' dry cleaning business from bankruptcy. But I had done it anyway because she was my sister, and because some part of me still believed that if I gave enough, I would eventually earn something back. I looked at my mother, standing there in the dress I had paid for, in the room I had arranged, telling me to float. I thought about the card in my purse. And then I did something I had never done in 31 years of this family. I reached into my bag, felt the envelope between my fingers, and I pushed it to the bottom, underneath my phone and my keys. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice light, "I have to make a call. I'll be back." I walked to the coat check. I retrieved my jacket. I walked out the front door and into the cold night air, and I did not go back. My phone started buzzing before I even reached my car. I let it ring. I sat in the driver's seat with my jacket on, and the engine running for a long time, listening to the heat click through the vents. Outside, the restaurant's amber light spilled onto the sidewalk. I could see movement through the window. Everyone was fine in there. Everyone always was, because I always made sure of it, and tonight I had simply stopped. The next morning arrived cold and gray, in the way that November mornings in the Midwest always do, like the sky has given up trying. I woke up on my couch, still in yesterday's work clothes, with 17 missed calls and a number of text messages that would have made my blood pressure spike if I had been in a different emotional state. Instead, I read them with a strange detachment, like reading a script for a play I was no longer performing in. My sister: I can't believe you just left. Derek's family thinks we're insane. You ruined the whole night. My mother: call me, now. This is not okay. My mother again an hour later. We had to put the bar tab on Dad's card. It was $800 over what the restaurant said you'd already paid. Where did you go? My brother: seriously, Dan, what is wrong with you? My father: honey, please just call us when you're ready. I set the phone face down on the coffee table and went to make coffee. While the pot was brewing, I opened my laptop out of habit, the way I do every morning before I'm fully awake, clicking through emails, checking my business accounts, running through the week's invoices. It was routine, autopilot. My coordination business had 3 active client events this month, and I handled the books myself, which meant I was always half aware of where every dollar was. That is why I saw it immediately. The savings account I shared with my father, the one I had opened 4 years ago after his first cardiac scare, the one I put $500 into every month without fail, the one labeled in my banking app as Family Emergency Reserve, was showing a balance of $61. I put down my coffee cup. There should have been nearly $22,000 in that account. I had not touched it since I deposited the last installment 6 weeks ago. I clicked on the transaction history with a feeling I can only describe as the floor slowly dropping away beneath my feet. 11 withdrawals, all in the past 2 months, ranging from $800 to $4,000, each one transferred to an account with the memo line, MKTG Ventures LLC. I sat very still. My brother had registered a company called MKTG Ventures in the spring. I knew because he had asked me to review the paperwork. He said he was starting a social media marketing consultancy. I had told him the business plan was thin. He had told me I was being negative. I called the bank at 8:15 in the morning, before I had eaten or changed or fully processed what I was looking at. The representative was professional and thorough, and delivered the information in a tone of practiced neutrality. The withdrawals from the joint account had been authorized via telephone banking by the co-account holder, my father, who had provided all correct security verification. I see, I said. Would you like to initiate a fraud inquiry or speak to our disputes department? Not yet, I said. Thank you. I hung up and sat at my kitchen table, looking at the number on the screen. $22,000, $500 a month for 4 years, set aside because I loved my father, and I was terrified of the day his heart gave out with nothing in reserve to cover the hospital bills. $22,000, transferred in pieces to a company my brother had created, authorized by my father, while my mother texted me about an $800 bar tab. I understood, then, why my mother had been so comfortable dismissing me at the restaurant. She had bigger leverage than a chair. She had been holding a live wire the whole time, and I had not known the lights were out. I needed facts before I moved. That was the planner in me, the part that had organized 47 weddings, 12 corporate galas, and one extremely tense retirement party where the honorees' 2 families were not supposed to know about each other. I did not make moves without information. I called Marcus, a private investigator I had used twice before for vendor background checks on high-end clients. He answered on the 3rd ring, sounding like he was already in his car. I need a full financial trace on my brother, I said. And his company, MKTG Ventures LLC. I need to know where $22,000 went in the last 8 weeks. And Marcus, I need it fast. There's a wedding in 30 hours and a family brunch the day after. There was a brief pause. This is your actual brother? He's a thief who I happen to share parents with, I said. Does that count? Give me until tomorrow morning, Marcus said. I spent the rest of the day at my office, working. It is a strange thing. Grief that hasn't decided yet what it wants to be. I answered emails. I confirmed a floral delivery. I ate a granola bar over my keyboard and did not notice the taste. My phone buzzed steadily with messages. I did not answer. At 4 in the afternoon, my mother called for the 9th time, and I let it go to voicemail, and then I listened to the message. Danielle, I don't know what has gotten into you, but this has to stop. Your sister is getting married tomorrow. Whatever issue you have, you need to set it aside for one day and be here for her. That's what family does. We show up. I expect you at the church at 2 o'clock. And bring the card you were planning to give. I know you had something for them. Don't be petty. I played it twice. Then I set my phone down and went back to work. Marcus's email arrived at 6:45 the following morning. 2 hours before the wedding, I had already decided not to attend. The subject line was MKTG Ventures, financial summary read when alone. I read it at my kitchen table with my second cup of coffee going cold beside me, and I want to say I was shocked, but the truth is, I was mostly just watching the last pieces fall into a shape I had already begun to suspect. My brother's company had no clients. It had no revenue. It had functioned, for the past 8 weeks, as a collection point for funds transferred from the family emergency account my father had access to, and from 2 additional credit lines I had not known my brother possessed. He had opened 2 store credit cards using my business address, listed as his own place of business on the applications, and had maxed both of them. $8,000 total. The funds had flowed out to an online sports betting platform and to a series of transfers under the label personal loan repayment to an account Marcus had traced to a man whose name I did not recognize. My brother was not building a business. My brother was paying off a gambling debt with my emergency savings and credit he had taken out under the shadow of my legitimate address. But the worst part, and I want you to understand that by this point in the morning, I had genuinely thought I had already found the worst part, was on page 3 of the report. There was a transfer out of the MKTG Ventures account that did not go to a betting site or a loan repayment. It went to a Venmo account under the name S. Holloway. My mother's maiden name was Holloway. The amount was $4,000. The date was 3 weeks ago, 1 week after the largest single withdrawal from my emergency account. My mother had not just known, she had collected. I sat with that for a long time. Outside my kitchen window, the November sky was doing the same flat gray thing it had been doing all week. Somewhere across the city, my sister was getting her hair done for her wedding. My father was probably ironing his tie. My brother was probably nursing a hangover and waiting for the money problems to somehow resolve themselves the way they always had, because I had always been there to resolve them. I opened my laptop. I navigated to the state business portal where my dry cleaning business was registered, not my parents' business in any legal sense, though they were the ones who ran it every day, whose name was on the sign out front, whose faces the customers knew. 3 years ago, when their previous shop went under and the equipment was being auctioned off, I had stepped in. I had used my credit score, my business history, my LLC, to purchase the commercial-grade cleaning equipment, lease the space, and register the new entity. My parents were listed as operators. I was the registered owner. Their income, their health insurance, their sense of identity as small business owners, all of it ran through a structure that existed because I had signed for it. I found the dissolution form. I did not click submit. Not yet. I needed them to hear it from me first. That was not mercy. That was tactics. The post-wedding brunch was at my aunt's house the following afternoon. 64 people, buffet style. The kind of gathering where my mother was always at her most comfortable holding court, accepting congratulations, performing the role of matriarch, with the ease of a woman who had practiced it her entire life. She had already posted 3 photos from the wedding to Facebook. I had not been in any of them. I arrived 20 minutes late. I wore a dark blazer and slacks, no heels this time, practical shoes, because I intended to stand my ground, and I did not need to be in pain while I did it. I carried nothing except my phone and the folder I had printed that morning. The backyard was full and loud with the particular noise of extended family that only sees each other at weddings and funerals. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were loading plates at the buffet table. My aunt's husband was grilling something. Children were running across the lawn. And at the center of it, like a sun that everything else orbited, was my mother, dressed in the coordinated blush that she and my sister had apparently agreed on for the bridal party, laughing her large company laugh, touching people's arms, accepting hugs, She saw me the moment I came through the gate. I watched the calculation happen behind her eyes, the brief flicker of something that might have been guilt, or might have been strategy, before she rearranged her face into warm concern and opened her arms. Danielle. She said my name with the kind of relief that was designed to be heard by the people standing around her. "Oh, I'm so glad you came. We were all so worried." "I'm fine," I said, not stepping into the hug. "I need to talk to you. And Dad. And my brother." She lowered her arms. The warmth in her face shifted into something more guarded. "This isn't the place for." "It is, actually," I said, "because you made it the place. When you posted on Facebook about what a wonderful family gathering this was. When you told everyone I was too proud to show up to my sister's rehearsal dinner, I kept my voice even. I had planned this the way I planned every event. Sequence, tone, timing. I thought the family deserved to hear both sides. The conversations nearest to us had already gone quiet in that ripple effect that happens when the temperature of a social situation changes suddenly. My aunt had appeared in the doorway of the house. My father was somewhere by the far fence, and I could see him, through the crowd, slowly going still. "Danielle," my mother said, low and sharp, dropping the performance, "do not do this here." "Where were you when you posted that I abandoned my sister?" I asked. "Was that not here? Was that not in front of everyone?" "That was," she stopped. "That was different. By about $22,000, I said. The yard was not silent yet, but it was getting there. My mother's face had done something complicated. My brother had materialized from somewhere near the food. He was always near the food, and he was looking at me with the particular expression of someone who has just realized the fire they thought they'd escaped has followed them. "I don't know what she's talking about," he said, to no one in particular, which was the tell. Innocent people name the accusation before they deny it. I opened the folder. "You co-signed on a joint savings account with me 4 years ago," I said to my father, who had made his way through the crowd and was standing now near my mother, looking the way he always looked when the two of them were together, slightly behind her, slightly smaller, like a man who had spent decades standing in someone's shadow and had come to think it was shelter. "You used your telephone banking access to authorize transfers to my brother's company. 11 transactions, over 2 months, $22,000. My father opened his mouth. "I called the bank," I said quietly. "They confirmed it was your authorization." "He was in trouble," my mother said, her voice still carrying the certainty of someone who believes she is in the right. "Your brother owed people money, real money. We were trying to protect him." "From what?" I asked. "From the sports betting platforms? From the online poker sites?" I turned to my brother. "You weren't in trouble with dangerous people. You were in trouble with an app on your phone." The silence was complete now. My aunt had come all the way out into the yard. My sister and Derek were somewhere in the cluster of faces, which I had not planned on. I had assumed they would still be somewhere brunch adjacent, and my sister was staring at me with an expression I could not fully read. "That's a lie," my brother said, but his voice had lost its conviction somewhere between the word "that's" and the word "lie." "The gambling records are in here," I said, holding up the folder. I didn't open it yet. I had learned in client management that sometimes the folder is more powerful closed. Along with the credit cards you opened using my business address. $8,000 in additional debt, in accounts linked to my professional address of record. I looked at him directly. "If those accounts default, it affects my credit, my business, my livelihood." "We didn't know about the credit cards," my mother said quickly, and it was seamless, the pivot from defiance to selective ignorance, and I had to admire the reflex even as it made me tired. "No?" I opened the folder then, just one page. I had chosen it carefully, the bank transfer statement, with the line for S. Holloway highlighted in yellow. Then explained this. I laid it on the patio table beside us. My mother glanced down. Just a flicker, but it was enough. $4,000, I said. Transferred from my brother's company account to your Venmo 3 weeks ago, a week after the first large withdrawal from my account. I looked at her. You told him to go ahead with it. You got your cut. The yard was so quiet I could hear the neighbors' wind chimes. I deserved, my mother started, and then stopped herself, which was the first smart thing she had done since I arrived. but it was too late. 3 words, I deserved. My aunt made a sound that was not quite a word. My cousin took a visible step back from my mother's orbit. My sister whispered something to Derek, her hand covering her mouth. You deserved what? I asked gently. To take money from your daughter's emergency fund? Money I saved in case your husband's heart acted up again? In case there was a medical crisis? That's what you deserved? My mother said nothing. For the first time in 31 years, I watched her realize she had no move. My father stepped forward. He did not look at my mother when he spoke. He looked at me, and in his face was the most uncomplicated thing I had seen from him in years. Shame, without performance, without deflection. I authorized the transfers, he said, loudly enough that the whole yard heard it. It was me. I'm not going to stand here and say otherwise, he swallowed. She told me Marcus was in serious danger. Physical danger. That we had no choice. I believed her, and I didn't ask enough questions. I should have. He looked at the ground. I'm sorry, Danielle. That doesn't fix it. I know that. My mother turned to him with an expression I had never seen on her face before. Pure, unguarded panic. Frank, don't, my father said. Quiet, final. The kind of word that ends 30 years of a certain kind of conversation. My brother had gone completely still. He was looking at the printed sheet on the table, and he was not denying anything anymore. I reached into the folder one last time. I placed the second document on the table next to the first. It was the business dissolution notice for my LLC, the one that held the dry cleaning shop's equipment, lease, and operating license. I had not submitted it yet, but I had printed the completed form. I have owned the business infrastructure of the family shop for 3 years, I said, to the wider audience now, because they had been brought into this by my mother's Facebook post, and they deserved the complete picture. The equipment lease, the commercial license, the liability insurance, all in my name, my credit. I tapped the dissolution notice. I'm removing myself as the owner of record. The lease reverts. The equipment returns to the leasing company. You have 60 days before the physical shop is affected. You can't, my mother said. The performance was entirely gone now. What was left was just a woman standing in a backyard, realizing that the structure she had built her life inside belonged to someone else. That's our livelihood. That's everything we have. It's the structure I built for you, I said. Because you needed it, and I had the credit score, and I loved you enough to sign for it. The same reason I have paid your car insurance for 2 years. The same reason I co-signed your storage unit and your equipment loan before that. I looked at her steadily. I did all of it because I wanted you to be okay. And you reached into the account I built to keep you safe, and you took $22,000 out of it, and you didn't tell me, and you didn't ask, and you took a cut for yourself. I paused, so now I'm taking myself back. My mother looked around the yard. She was a woman who had survived every difficult moment of her life by finding the right audience and performing for them. But the audience had shifted. I could see it in the way people were standing. My aunt with her arms crossed, my cousin looking at the printed sheet on the table, Derek's mother very deliberately finding something to look at on the other side of the yard. You'd make us homeless, my mother said. You'd do that to your own parents. You have 60 days, I said. And the shop has revenue. You've been running it successfully for 3 years. You can re-register the business under your own name, apply for the equipment lease yourselves, find a guarantor who isn't your daughter. I picked up the folder. Those are options I didn't have when I was 28 years old, and you called me crying at 11 o'clock at night because the previous shop was going under. I figured it out. I think you can too. I looked at my brother. He had not said anything in several minutes, which was unusual enough that people had started to notice. The credit cards you opened at my address, I said. I'm reporting them to the card issuers as fraudulent. That's not a threat. That's just what they are. He nodded. A small, defeated motion. It was the most honest thing I had seen from him in years. I folded the folder under my arm. I'm sorry, the timing is what it is, I said. And I meant it not as a performance, but as a plain fact. Timing is always what it is. Congratulations on the wedding. This last part I said to my sister, who was still standing with Derek near the edge of the patio. She looked very young suddenly, very far from the context that had built this morning. I hope the Amalfi Coast is everything you wanted. I walked back through the gate the way I had come in. My mother did try to manage the story afterward. She posted to Facebook the same evening, something about family wounds and broken trust, and prayers requested. The comments were different this time. My aunt responded publicly. My father's sister replied with 3 words, "Please call me," directed at my profile, not my mother's. It was a small thing, but I noticed it. My father called me 4 days later. I answered. He was staying at a motel near the shop. He had told my mother he needed time, which was apparently the first time in their marriage he had said something like that out loud and meant it. His voice on the phone was exhausted in a way that sounded new and honest. "I'm talking to a lawyer about the account transfers," he said. "I want to make it right legally, whatever that means." "I already filed a civil claim," I said. "Through the bank. It doesn't have to go further than that if you cooperate." "It will," he said. "I'll cooperate with whatever they need." A pause. "I'm going back to work at the shop. Register it under my name. See if I can get approved for the equipment lease." "You might not qualify," I said. Not cruelly, just honestly. "I know," he said, "but I'm going to try." Another pause. "I'm sorry, Danielle. I don't have a bigger word than that. I know sorry doesn't give you the money back." "No," I said. "It doesn't. Will you?" He stopped, started again. "Can we talk again? Not about the money. Just talk." I thought about it. I didn't perform thinking about it. I actually sat with it for a moment. "Yeah," I said. "Not yet, but yeah." He said that was enough. I told him to take care of his heart, literally, because his cardiologist had been recommending a follow-up for months, and I had been the one reminding him. He said he had the appointment scheduled. I said good. I hung up and stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I had sat 2 weeks ago, looking at the number 61 on my phone screen, and I took stock of what I actually had. I had a business with 3 active clients and a reputation I had earned by showing up and being excellent at my work. I had an apartment I paid for with money I made myself. I had a court claim in progress, and a father who was, slowly and imperfectly, trying to face what he had done. I had a mother who was, for the first time, experiencing the natural consequences of her own choices instead of mine. And I had $22,000 I might or might not recover, which I was trying to think of not as a loss but as the final, definitive payment on the education of learning exactly who my family was and what I was worth to them. What I did not have was a seat at anyone's table that had been cleared and reserved and held for me. But I was beginning to understand that those seats had never really existed. I had spent 31 years setting tables for other people and then standing in the corner, telling myself it was temporary, telling myself I was earning something, telling myself that if I just planned one more event, signed one more lease, put one more month into the account, they would eventually look over and see me standing there and say, "Here, sit down, this seat is yours." They never did. So I went home. I made dinner. I ate it at my own table, in my own chair, in my own apartment, in the particular silence of a life that was finally, unambiguously mine. 3 months later, my father got the shop re-registered under his own name. He didn't qualify for the commercial equipment lease alone. His credit history was exactly as complicated as I had expected, but he found a co-signer through a small business development program, and he made it work. He sent me a photo of the new sign out front. Same name, different owner of record. I looked at the photo for a long time. I thought about all the times I had driven past that sign and felt the specific pride of someone who has built something and cannot take credit for it. I thought about the night I had sat in a restaurant parking lot in my coat, engine running, phone buzzing, and chosen, for the first time, to go home instead. I texted him back a single word. "Good." He replied with a thumbs up. Then, after a moment, "Coffee, sometime?" I thought about it. Genuinely, this time, not as a performance of consideration, but as an actual question I was putting to myself. Was this something I wanted? Was this someone I was choosing, rather than someone I was defaulting to out of habit and fear, and the ancient hunger to be claimed by people who should have claimed me first? "Maybe in the spring," I wrote back. Let me know when the shop gets its first good month." He sent a laughing emoji. Then, "That might be a while." "I know," I said. "I'll wait." And I put the phone down and went back to work. And the afternoon light came through my office window the way it always did in February, pale and determined. And I sat in my own chair at my own desk, and I did not float.